2025 has been a really weird year for gaming. It's been a pretty eventful one. We've had about 4 billion layoffs, I think every other week, something like that. Xbox are digging themselves into a hole every other week as well. We've had a hotly anticipated sequel every other week. It's just been very constant, and the indie game scene has been, it's hard to sort of pigeonhole the indie scene into like, this is what it's doing, because it's doing everything at once. You know, there's so many different developers in the indie scene constantly iterating on established ideas, coming up with new ideas. But I can't help but notice that in the last like 5 years, I want to say, roguelikes boomed, man. They have just exploded. They used to be kind of a far and few between occasional little gem, you know, you're into the Gungeons, you're Binding of Isaacs. They weren't that common at one point, but at a certain point, I'm not sure exactly when the turning point was, but it seems like now everything is being turned into a roguelike. There's deck builder roguelikes, there's action roguelikes, there's RPG roguelikes, there's roguelikes where you perform heists. Everything has a roguelike variant at this point, and I like roguelikes a lot, but it has made me think, what is the appeal? You ever see those weird like AI generated ads of the exact same like point scorer game thing? It's like the same game every single time, and it's just like, what the heck? Number going up, collecting points, kill the guys, and blah, blah, blah. It's just like pure like cookie clicker type fucking, it's just like nothing. It's just like hollow. And I kind of feel like maybe the rogue-like genre has found a way to turn the appeal of that, like that kind of like number go up satisfaction, into genuinely compelling, well-tuned video games through the roguelike genre. Vampire Survivors is the biggest evidence of that, and I think that in particular has now become its own genre as well, the Survivors-like. In this video, I'm going to be highlighting recent, you know, memorable important examples of dopamine simulators, games that tickle this part of your brain that just likes to see numbers explode. And I think these are the ones that are like legitimately pretty good games. Their appeal extends beyond just like mindless like satisfaction. There is like a well-oiled machine happening. And I would like to just open the question, what do you think of these games? Are these interesting games to you? Do you think this is a bad direction, or is there like loads of potential here? Let me know in the comments, or don't. Just drop a silly comment. Just as long as you're dropping a comment, I don't mind. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, do everything the algorithm likes, but most importantly, enjoy the show, enjoy your day. So the first game we're going to be talking about is Vampire Survivors. With every passing day, Vampire Survivors becomes closer to reaching classic status. It's a very straightforward concept. You play as Bullet Hell. You know, Bullet Hell games where you have to dodge all the bullets. What if you're the one firing all the bullets, and you are the bullet? No, the game's not called Bullet Hell. I'm an idiot. Play as a guy who just continuously levels up and pumps out weapons and bullets and axes, whips, and lightning strikes, and you don't do anything. You just move. You don't like activate any, you don't press a button to attack. The attacks just fly out of you, and you just continuously collect XP, level up, collect XP, level up, and get stronger and stronger, and the goal is to outpace whatever crowd of vampires there are. First of all, I gotta praise the game on having just a massive amount of build diversity. There's loads to sort of comb through here. The music is really excellent. It's very charming. The aesthetic is very intentionally lo-fi, but it does a lot with it. It gets a lot out of that aesthetic. It's a really cheap game too. It doesn't cost a lot. It's like £5, if that. And there's a lot of fun to be had there. There's also a co-op mode, which I've had a load of fun with playing with friends and family. You know, co-op roguelikes are pretty rare. That's pretty cool. So there's quite a lot going for Vampire Survivors, but it's far from a perfect game. It's very shoddy in a lot of ways. First off, I'm not a huge fan of just how thoughtless of a game it is. The amount of times I have drifted off to sleep playing this game because I'm inputting so little. So as a result, that kind of becomes a barrier to my emotional attachment or interest in the game. There is very little player input happening at all. It's a hard one to enjoy for long sessions. For me, this game works best in like short bursts. It can feel pretty tedious, I think, and the meta progression isn't particularly nuanced. There are coins you collect in the game that when you're in the main menu you can use to buy new upgrades to get stronger and blah blah blah. It's very cut and dry. That's typically how most roguelikes go about progression. I think it's roguelike that are the ones that do that, not roguelite. There is a distinction. Apologies if I am using the wrong one, but I'm just going to go with roguelike. I guess I just wish there were more creative ways to spend your money. Maybe like a separate mode where you could earn unlocks or something like that. Things do get really weirdly expensive really quickly too. It kind of doles out progression on purpose to keep you playing, and that's something that I am kind of wary of, back to the previous point about like attention, or more specifically retention. You know, a lot of games in the live service space, your Fortnites, your Roblox, there's only so much room in the bandwidth of gaming for live service titles, you know, so I do do wonder if maybe games like this, roguelikes or Vampire Survivors likes, also operate their game design to this same philosophy. That kind of addictive mobile game-esque quality where it's like, okay, if we just make it so that they have to play 20 runs in order to unlock this thing, that's going to keep them playing and blah blah blah. And I do feel like Vampire Survivors does kind of drag out its progression. I think Vampire Survivors can feed into that a little too much sometimes. Overall though, I do think it is a really good game. I do love that there's a co-op mode. It's not quite amazing to me. I know some people really ride for it. It has been supported really well with additional content post-launch, with very cheap DLCs, if not free DLCs. Overall for me, it's very good. 20 Minutes Till Dawn is the first game I played in the wake of Vampire Survivors that made me realize, wait, this is going to become a thing. This is like a new genre. This game is very similar to Vampire Survivors. You have to survive for 20 minutes. You are pumping out loads of bullets and stuff. You are actually the one shooting this time, though. You have to press the right trigger to fire and you have to aim them, and there is a bit more player engagement there. The tone of this one is a lot more ominous. It's like at nighttime, you're in a forest, you're being, hunted down by these weird freaking teethy eel things. The difficulty ceiling is pretty strong, like Vampire Survivors, again, there's very little input there. Here, you do have to really think about everything you're seeing on screen. There is something to strive for. There is a learning curve, which I think is very compelling in most any action game. The gunplay is fun too. It's responsive. It plays really nicely. However, there's a lot of problems with this game. First off, build diversity, which is something I just praised Vampire Survivors for. There's very little of that here. There are 3 maps you can pick between, but they look extremely similar. It's a pretty monotonous loop, and no matter how many upgrades you get or weapons you pick up, it doesn't ever really feel that astronomically different, even in the late game. Striving for those upgrades, being interested in seeing what all these weapons do, that's something that I think is really important for a game like this. Give me a reason to want to see through this gameplay loop so that I have access to all of the stuff. But yeah, again, pretty early on, you come to the realization that once I get there, it's not going to be a vastly different game. I do believe the developer is working on a sequel to this game. There is an ad for it when I load the game in the corner. But I do feel like a lot of the time I spent with the game was spent with me a little exhausted by it. But I don't regret my time with it at all. I still think it is pretty damn solid. Now let's talk about Balatro. Probably the most successful example of a dopamine simulator. This one made it all the way to the damn Game Awards, taking home Indie Game of the Year, getting a Game of the Year nomination, and it's developed by one person. It just took off. In this game, you're playing poker hands to reach a certain number. Some poker hands are weak, some are stronger, and then you can get little cards that alter your deck to make certain hands more effective, and blah blah blah. There are so many little variables. Honestly, I could be here for 5 minutes just explaining the rules of this game, but one of the biggest positives I can give Balatro is how easy and accessible it is, despite how much is going on. You would think, oh, I need to know all about how poker works in order to play this game. No, you don't. The game streamlines all of that really comfortably for new players, and the tutorial is very simple. Whenever you're learning card game rules or board game rules for the first time, it's just like word salad, at least for me. This game gives you just enough for you to sort of get by, at first, and then as you play it, you just sort of understand the little quirks of it all, and then once you really get to grips with it, you can start building your own ideas, coming up with your own different styles of deck and, joker combinations, and that's when the game really starts to flourish. It is extremely well balanced given the amount of moving parts there are. I know Local Thunk, the developer, is working on a big new content update, which I think got delayed recently. I can't wait to see what, he cooks up with that, because yeah, I can only imagine how long it must take to make sure there's not something that's too overpowered. Like, it's all so well balanced. You look at any Joker, even if you don't want to buy it in the shop, you look at what it does and you think to yourself, like, I can see why that would be useful. Like, I can imagine the build that supports that card, giving you a reason to want to go back and give it a try. It's got a really memorable aesthetic and sound design and a great song. I was going to say soundtrack, but it's just one song, but I could listen to it forever. And it never borders on being like a thoughtless, mind-numbing thing. You're always having to be observant and patient, deducing what the best option is. The amount of times I've played Balatro, played a hand, and realized right as I played it, why did I do that? I could have done this. That would have been way better. That would have gotten me way more points. As much as luck is a factor in this game, observation is a factor, and I think that's a really huge reason as to why this thing took off. It makes you feel smart and proud when you do succeed and play a hand that's really good. However, I do think the lack of story or meaningful meta progression does prevent this game from reaching a higher level. Once you've unlocked all of the jokers, there's not much of a reason to continue playing other than just for the fun factor, which is obviously, a totally valid reason to continue playing. I just wish I cared more about winning. The game itself is still dope as hell. It's fantastic. Met someone at Comic-Con dressed as Blueprint. That was fucking sick. Next up, we're going to talk about another game that's going for a similar thing to Balatro, that is Ballionaire. this is kind of like a Balatro-like, in how the goal is to just get as many points as possible, reach a certain threshold of points, and see if you can surpass it and get like a build going where you can sustain that for multiple rounds. That's the sort of game design framework of Ballionaire, which is exactly how Balatro works, but in this case it's not poker, it's plinko. You know, the thing where the balls go down, like the gambling thing. So yeah, gambling, poker, yeah, I would say this falls in the Balatro camp, not Balantro. What am I saying? In Ballionaire, you put these pegs on a plinko board that the ball has to fall on and bonk them, as they call it in the game. And when they do that, you get money, you get upgrades, and yeah, this thing is seriously explosive. Like, it doesn't take long before you drop a ball and it just everything goes insane. It's really fun to just see what you can make happen with the available tools. The synergy potential is near endless, honestly. Part of the reason that is because of just the unpredictability. You never know where the ball's going to go. You can't aim the ball like in Peggle or something where you can aim and see the trajectory. You can't do that. You just drop the ball, wherever it lands is where it lands, and that unpredictability makes every run so exciting. And then what transpires is just visual mayhem. Love the firecracker, the brooms, where the broom takes your ball to like the side of the thing. You could do so much with the available things, the pegs or whatever, what they call triggers. Triggers is what they're called in the game, but I'm going to call them pegs. Even if you wanted to repeat the same run again and again and again, it just wouldn't pan out the same way, because it's the randomization is included so smartly, because it never feels unfair. It's just sort of the nature of plinko, you know, so you never feel like you're being cheated by the RNG or anything like that. It's visually very dazzling. The colorful art style really pops. It kind of looks like I don't know, like a fairground or something, like a circus is kind of the aesthetic. There's an unseriousness to it that I think really leans nicely into this sort of game. The unlocks are actually where I think the game kind of falls flat. They're chance based. You literally just pop in a card in a vending machine, slot machine sort of thing, and then like a loot box appears where you pick one of 3 things, and it's just like a little bit underwhelming because, you know, you don't really have any agency over what you're unlocking. The tutorial is also extremely weak. You have all these different like keywords that are being thrown at you constantly, and it's like a little overwhelming. It's super overwhelming actually, and the tutorial is very bare bones, and it's just like, yeah, you figure it out as you go along. First couple runs I was like, dude, I don't know what this thing is doing. I'm reading it is just word salad to me, bro. The ball is hitting it and it's doing something. I'm reading it, I can't quite tell. I ended up having to watch Northern Lion play it for like 3 videos before I really got to grips with what this game was doing. And then once I got it and I saw all of the harmonies and everything, the synergies happening, it just became true beauty. But the game does a really bad job of easing you into it. The UI is awful as well, especially on Steam Deck, which is where I'm playing it. I think it's probably better on PC if you're using a mouse and keyboard. It probably works a lot better. The amount of times I've accidentally removed a peg that I didn't want to remove, or I've placed it in the wrong spot, it's infuriating, to be honest. I feel like the UI could have definitely been improved. Ultimately, the fun factor here is pretty undeniable. It's really good. Speaking of gambling-themed roguelikes, there is a sort of subgenre of this kind of game emerging a fair bit at the moment too, which is like slot machine ones. Haven't played too many of them, but I have got 2 big ones that I would like to talk about. We're going to start with slots and daggers. This one's the newest game I think in this whole video. It's just come out. It's a very cheap game, like an alarmingly cheap game. Like when I saw how cheap it was, I was like, huh, why is that? Why is it not like £10 or something? It's like £5. It's really cheap. It's like an action game in a lot of ways too. It's very mechanics driven. You sort of go on this path, adventure, killing enemies using the slot machine. At the very beginning, you pick a loadout of 3 things that your slot machine can roll into, like a sword or a shield or a coin or something. If it lands on a sword, you deal damage. If it lands on a coin, you get money, etc, etc. And then there's a shop where you can buy new things and get upgrades and yada yada. The hook though is this skill check system that they have that is so satisfying to pull off. For example, like the big sword weapon thing, that when it lands on the big sword, there's this like meter that goes up and down, and if you hit the button at the very top, you're doing like critical hit damage. And there's one with a healing spell where it's like a book that gets bright and dark and bright and dark, and if you hit it when it's bright, you get like a bunch of health. It stops the game quite smartly from ever becoming mindless. The challenge will sort of scale and bob and weave depending on how successful you're being, so it's super easy to jump into. Like I've shown this game to like 3 people now and they were just like fucking in it, you know? It's good. It's really good. However, this game actually unlocked a few important details that I've yet to bring up in this video when it comes to games like this. First off, the first 3 to 4 hours of all of these games is the best part of the game. Obviously, games like Balatro kind of unfurl in very exciting ways as you continue learning how to play it, and sometimes you can get some legendary runs later on, but I would still argue even those like amazing peak moments where you're hitting crazy numbers or whatever, they don't quite compare to how exciting it is to sort of learn the mechanics when your mind starts to wonder of what could possibly be in future runs, like what if I got that next time, or blah blah blah. That's a really fun thing to engage with. Your imagination's firing off and you're sort of discovering just a really robust, addictive sort of gameplay loop. That to me is when all of these games really peak. Slots and Daggers drops off really hard after those first few hours. The moment you sort of suss out the optimum, strategy, the game does not become that much fun at all. It just becomes a bit tedious. The longevity is very limited here, which brings context to the cheap price tag. There are these items that like respin your slot machine when you land on them, and they are like a cheat code victory every single time. Like, there's no build where you shouldn't take them, or you wouldn't take. They work in every context. They just sort of respin so you can just keep running up the damage again and again and again. It's like, why would you ever not buy them? It renders so many of the potential things you could buy in the shop that are not the ×2 or the spin blade or the diamond just totally pointless. Like, there are so many items in this game I'm never going to pick up because I'd rather leave space for the respin stuff. And when you're sort of max leveled, the game is extremely easy, and runs in this game are fairly long. The excitement wears off pretty instantly as soon as you sort of discover all of this. But the excitement is really good when you're discovering it. Like those few hours where you're sort of learning the game, they are really fun. It's worth playing if you want just a few hours of like super dopamine, but don't expect anything that's gonna have any longevity at all. My plan is to never touch this game again. The presentation's pretty slick. I like the music. The lighting looks really like dramatic and adds to this kind of storybook thing that's going on. It's got a nice vibe to it. Overall, it's just very thin on the ground, like super thin on the ground, but you get what you pay for, I suppose. However, this game did inspire me to give Clover Pit a try. I had heard this game had a bit more legs to it, I think I've seen some people put in like 20-30 hours. There's a lot more to unlock in this game. There's more kind of secrets to discover. This game, though, is a lot more thoughtless than Slots and Daggers. You're not really doing much mechanically at all. You're spinning a slot machine and hoping you get lucky. I've seen some people complain that it's really light on player input and gameplay. The player input mostly comes in the lucky charms and the sort of build variety stuff, the upgrades and the items you unlock. There's this phone call thing where someone will call you and give you a little upgrade. You have to pick between 3 upgrades. The decisions you make along the way is really where the player engagement happens. But the actual gameplay itself, yeah, you get money, you use the money to play the slots, and you hope the money goes up rather than down. It plays kind of like Balatro as well, in the sense that there's an amount of money you need to pay off. There's like a debt that keeps getting bigger and bigger, and your goal is to upgrade yourself and get better stuff and blah 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 so that you can outpace the constantly increasing debt. I think Clover Pit really works. I think it's a much more robust game than Slots and Daggers. Like, I could see myself running up some Clover Pit just for the thrill, way before I do that with Slots and Daggers. The aesthetic too, definitely inspired by Inscription, or maybe like mouthwashing a little bit. It feels kind of distorted, even though that's like not how that word works. It looks really cool, and there's a horror element. There's somebody like the text box is sort of someone keeping you prisoner, telling you how to play the game, sort of like how the guy in Inscription sort of tells you the rules or where things are and says like, don't touch that, blah blah blah, that's for later. There's like a sort of ominous presence in the game instructing you of what you can do and where you can go and things you can touch. There's a door that is locked that you can't open. There are drawers you need to find the keys for that you can unlock by playing the game, and yeah, it's definitely something like of an experience that you can sort of tap into and ask questions. It piques your curiosity. There's like a mystery element, which I think is really nice. You are very much at the mercy of RNG in this game. If the slots aren't in your favor, you're going to struggle. Kind of wish I had some music. No music at all. Sound design is a little weak, in my opinion. Overall, though, yeah, this is a strong game. I'm still fairly early into the game. There's quite a lot of stuff for me to unlock, but yeah, I do like this a lot. Next up, Megabonk. This game kind of really took off. It only came out a few months ago, and I remember just seeing the developer promoting their game, just sort of highlighting one of the crazy builds you can make in it, and I just thought, this looks like a bit of fun. It's quite cheap as well, like £8 I think I got it for. So overall, I was like, yeah, I'm happy to give this a go. It seems like a good time, and I was pretty entertained by it for a while, but I gotta say, the excitement dries up pretty fast. I think this game is horribly balanced, horribly tuned. I think it could have used a lot of play testing. It will not take long before you are raking in so much currency that you have no idea what to do with because you can't unlock anything because you need to do all the challenges first, and those challenges take really long. And then there's also the stat upgrades in this game. There are so many stat upgrades, which on one hand is a positive because it allows for just freaking endless build diversity. You can build damn near anything your heart can dream of in this game, and there are no limits to the upgrades at all, basically. Or there's very few limits, you know. You can just keep leveling up one weapon again and again and again until it's a massive sword that just swipes the whole map. Like, you can go insane if you're able to get yourself there. You can build extremely hilariously overpowered builds, and this game's totally okay with you just going insano mode and breaking the game. In fact, the game's almost encouraging you to do it, which I'm all for. That's in no way my issue with Megabonk. It just feels like every knob has been really randomly tweaked, and I don't know, it's not the most like player-friendly experience, despite it being this kind of constant overstimulating dopamine simulator. I haven't actually explained what the game even is. It's basically 3D Vampire Survivors, but with a layer of Risk of Rain 2. You don't press anything, you just fire weapons out of your character, you move around and pick up XP and level up, and that's the loot. But on top of that, there's a time limit. The game is getting harder the longer you sort of wait around, just like in Risk of Rain 2. There are chests that give you these upgrades that are very akin to Risk of Rain 2. The way bosses drop in is exactly like Risk of Rain 2. It's basically a hodgepodge of Vampire Survivors and Risk of Rain 2, and it's fun. It's a good time. It's really, really overstimulating to a point where it's just like fucking crazy. You get hit with a level up, then a chest, then you get hit with a shrine that you wait at, and you get another stat boost, and there are so many stat boosts, and it's very obvious which stat boosts are more effective than other stat boosts. I would always +1 on projectiles, man. Come on. Are you kidding me? But it all kind of works under the guise of this game being a bit memey, a bit silly. One of the characters is like Giga Chad, and his power is his aura. Like, you know, there's a lot of like humor like that in here. Overall, yeah, it's all right. It's okay. Pit, or Ball X Pit, is a riff on Breakout, you know, the sort of brick breaker game where you bounce a ball and you bring it back and blah blah blah, and you break the bricks. In Ball Pit, you are firing out those balls to kill enemies and bosses, and you can unlock all sorts of different balls, whether it be fireballs or poison balls, and you can fuse them to make your own crazy evolved balls. That's the kind of gameplay loop, and it sort of bottles that into a Vampire Survivors-esque sort of loop where you upgrade and level up and you get the gems, and you know the deal. But there is a twist to Ball Pit. You know, there's two things about Ball Pit that I think really set it apart and make it stand out as a very one-of-a-kind and strange game. First off is how you spend your time outside of the Ball Pit game. Typically in like a Megabonk or a Vampire Survivors, you play the game, you go to the main menu, and then you unlock whatever you can unlock. You buy new upgrades, new cards, new whatever, I don't know, whatever the game has got you doing. That is not what happens in Ball Pit. The upgrade system, how you go about unlocking new stuff in Ball Pit, is extremely cool. It's a town builder. You're building a town. You build a clinic, which will increase the HP of your characters. You can build a farm, which will give you new resources to craft new things for your town, which will unlock new things for the characters. You can build like a gunsmith that will increase the damage of certain characters, and then you send your characters off like balls, and depending on what they hit will depend on what gets upgraded. And then you can adjust the layout of the town to make it so that you can maximize the amount of bounces you can get, and then as you level up the characters, you can increase the amount of time they bounce for, you can increase the amount of resources they pick up when hitting a forest versus a building. It's like its own game. It's like you come away from playing Ball Pit to play this incredibly well-tuned town builder minigame that could function really nicely as its own game. It's crazy, but it really works. I'm always so excited to continue my town, just as much as I am excited to boot up some Ball Pit, you know, and play the actual, you know, the game. The game that I expected or paid for or whatever. Like, I was so taken aback and surprised by this town building element. But the second thing that I think makes Ball Pit really stand out is the aesthetic and the setting. It's kind of like an apocalyptic setting. The titular pit in Ball Pit, that is a literal pit that you are going down as you continue playing the game, and you see new biomes, there's new enemies, new bosses. So the game's always giving you new challenges to overcome, something new to look forward to, and it has been given a context of this sort of dystopian apocalypse that you're trying to rebuild through the town building element. So there is like a narrative or wider contextual reason for the game's existence. experience, and that's something that's really rare and has been lacking in literally every other game on this list. The game also lets you adjust how long the games last for. You can play a normal 15-minute long run, or you can bring it down to 12 minutes if you just have a little bit of time. You can easily fit in a bit of Ball Pit no matter where you are, waiting for something on a train, traveling. If you just want a little small dose of Ball Pit, this game can kind of tweak itself to deliver that. It's very accessible and very, like overwhelmingly well thought out. Like every little, I don't know, mechanism, mechanic, decision feels like it has exactly what Megabonk is lacking, like that playtesting, that understanding of exactly how we can cater this to be engaging, and the progression economy is really nice. It's not too sluggish that it takes the piss and wastes your time or anything like that. Every run you're always unlocking something significant, and if you're not, you have the chance to in the town building mechanic. And you're actually interested in seeing what there is next to unlock. Every character has their own little description that gives you a rundown of their thing. They make really novel use of the breakout thing. Like there's one character that fires the balls from the other side. There's one character that, you're incentivized to bounce as much as you can. Each one has you rethinking how you approach the game. I kind of dismissed the game when I first started playing it. Like 2 runs, 3 runs in, I was like, this is cool. I'm at a point in my life where I guess the games that mean the most to me are the ones that speak to me, I guess, more narratively or have really strong writing. I just played Citizen Sleeper. I was absolutely blown away and riveted by that game in a way that is rare. Coming from that to playing this, I'm like, oh, this is a very just sort of video gamey, arcadey, numbers, damage, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, whatever. It'll kill some time. Let's give it a go. And before I knew it, I became so fascinated by every design philosophy I was seeing in this game. Every idea they had in this game was really working for me. I just had to step back and think like, man, this is actually like a gorgeously made game. This is the game that's making me think maybe there is something to what we're seeing, this movement, the survivors likes, the roguelikes. Like, this is a game that is taking the elements of them that is alarming to me and maybe a little exhausting to me, the sort of time sink, the number go up, the dopamine of it all, the sort of engagement retention, like the part of it that seems a little like, regressive. Ball Pit is taking those things and bringing them to a level that is just gorgeous on an artistic level. It's very easy for me to see like the effort and the time and the vision that's gone into tuning these things. I'm loving it more with every single run, and the music goes fucking hard too, especially the town builder theme. I love that shit. But yeah, that's everything I have to talk about on the subject of time waster survivors like dopamine games. Are there any other games that are in this same sort of breath that I should check out and try, and maybe can deepen my understanding of what these games could be? Let me know if there's any good ones I should check out or are coming out that I should keep my eyes peeled for. If you've played any of the games I've talked about in this video, you can let me know how you feel about those games as well. If you agree, disagree, tell me in the comments. We can have a chat. But have a wonderful day first and foremost. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.